Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Games Like Zelda. I'm your host, Bastian. Now, I know I said last week that we were going to be talking about my second favorite series, and it was going to be the whole series, but the more I got into it, the more I realized that this game deserves its own video. Now, in case you have not heard of this game, it's called Seiken Densetsu 3. And it's actually the third Mana game in the Mana series, but it was never released here in America, or anywhere besides Japan for that matter. This is really unfortunate because a lot of people hold Secret of Mana in extreme high esteem, and rightly so. It is a great game. Seiken Densetsu 3, though, is everything that is great about Secret of Mana, and then up another notch. Now, the gameplay in Secret of Mana, the magic system, the way your items are in a circle that allows you to quickly, easily access them by scrolling through that. I mean, all of these things are present in Seiken Densetsu 3, but the gameplay is even better because now each type of character goes through several class changes, and that gives you all kinds of different fancy finishing blows that it allows you to select between 6 different characters to comprise your party of 3. And what ends up happening as a result is every character comes from a different part of the world, so they've each got a completely different stake in the overall plot. And this ends up affecting the end of the game. Because of this, I believe there are 3 completely separate final bosses. It's just amazing how this game figures out how to put all these different pieces of the puzzle together to create a new engaging experience each time. I've played it only twice now. I feel like I should play it 6 times, but I haven't gotten around to it that much yet. But the second time I played it, it was like playing a brand new game because I selected 3 completely separate characters from the ones that I chose the first time. It's also just like Secret of Mana, a multiplayer game, which is amazing for an action RPG. I mean, in Zelda, we've just got the 4 Swords games, which is a little bit of a cop-out because it's not like each Link has his own character personality or his own motive or mission or anything. Some other ways that this is improved from Secret of Mana is the graphical style. Now, this is interesting because both of these games were released for the Super Nintendo, yet somehow Seiken Densetsu 3 looks so much better than Secret of Mana. Now, Secret of Mana looks pretty fine, don't get me wrong, but Seiken Densetsu 3 is more detailed. It just looks a whole step above where Secret of Mana was. Now, the music, thankfully, is nearly identical. Once again, it's recorded by Hiroki Kikuchi, who only did the Secret of Mana. He's done very few game soundtracks, unfortunately, which is sad because this guy is incredibly talented and has his own very unique style. Instead of the traditional sort of Celtic-y, epic strings and horns kind of style of soundtrack like maybe you'd hear in a Final Fantasy or something, he does something completely different. He does like a prog rock jazz fusion thing, and I didn't really understand that that's what it was back when I was a kid, but now that I'm older and a musician myself and a composer myself, I can recognize how incredibly talented he is. I could just listen to his soundtracks all day long. So when this game was released in Japan, already there were tons of really great Japanese games that were not making it over. Unfortunately, they had decided that Americans didn't really like difficult games, didn't really like RPGs, because they weren't really selling as well as they were in Japan, so they didn't bring a whole lot of those over to us. I don't understand why they didn't see how well Secret of Mana sold and realize that Seiken Densetsu 3 would also sell well. Now, there's a rumor that an official translation had been started, but that was abandoned because it was just deemed the market was not going to allow so many of those RPGs to come over all at once. This is also why we didn't get Final Fantasy V until years later. A lot of people tried to blame the game Secret of Evermore for Seiken Densetsu 3 not coming out, and that turns out to not be the case whatsoever. Secret of Evermore was something worked on by a completely separate division of Square, completely American. It had no bearing whatsoever on Seiken Densetsu 3 not coming over. So then, of course, some very industrious fans went ahead and translated that game and have made it available for people to play as a result, translated ROM. That's the only way to play it, unfortunately. There was some feeling that maybe it would be remade for the DS, so what's kind of curious is that on a Mana fan site, they had a poll about what would you call this in English? Would it be Secret of Mana 2? All subsequent Mana games after this all had something of Mana. So would it follow in that tradition? Well, if so, what would be the most appropriate title for it? This is about 6 different heroes, so the final poll results determined Heroes of Mana would be the most appropriate title for this game if it were in English. So, curiously, Square Enix eventually announced that it was going to be making a game called Heroes of Mana, which led a lot of people to think, oh my gosh, they're finally actually going to release it in English, and since this was going to be for the DS, it's going to be a remake. So we got very excited, and then it turns out that it was sort of related to Seiken Densetsu 3, but it was actually a prequel, and it was not an action RPG, it was a real-time strategy game. I forced myself to play it all the way through just because I wanted to experience that story, and I'm glad I did, but once was enough, and we're all still pretty disappointed that it didn't herald a re-release of Seiken Densetsu 3 finally in English. It shocks me that to this day there has not been a localization of that game officially. It seems like it's such a great game and they have nothing to lose. They should just contact the people who did the fan translation and purchase that translation from them and release it on the Wii Virtual Console or even the 3DS now, but that doesn't seem to be happening, unfortunately. I think that it is an amazing game, and if somehow you end up getting the chance to play it, you'll probably love it. So that's been this week in games like Zelda. Next week we'll just talk about the rest of the Mana series. See you guys. Bye.